Howdy. Today I'm going to show you how I've come up with a way to work with Ableton Live and Virus Snow and hopefully speed up everybody's workflow. It sped up mine a bunch. It took me months of aggravation and just like headache to get to this point. So I'd like to save it somebody else out there that as well. So the thing about the snow is that it has four parts, and if you're writing, if you obviously want to write more than four parts and use all of the awesome sounds that it has, it's going to be a little problematic without having to bounce down to audio all the time. Uh, the way that I came up with this, or the frustration that I especially had, was regarding track automation. So if I have, say, the snow loaded up and I want to automate the filter cutoff one, the way that I started out working was I would just go onto the snow track and I would automate filter cutoff one. But this is a global setting essentially. So if whatever sound I load into track one, this filter cutoff automation is going to be applied to that, no matter what sound is loaded in the virus. So that didn't work once you want to use more than four sounds. So I came up with a different approach, and essentially I don't use track automation for automation at all. Um, what I do instead is I use clip automation. So for today's demonstration, I'm gonna make four MIDI parts, and let's say the first group of four is gonna be bass. And I'll just copy the name down. To make this clearer, I'll give the bass a nice deep bassy color, and the snow give a nice white color. So the four MIDI parts, I'm going to set their output to the snow, and then I'm going to set the MIDI channel to 1, and then go through each one of these and set them accordingly. So 1 through 4. All right, so now I have four MIDI parts that are going to correspond to the four parts in the virus. If I go ahead and draw in a MIDI clip, just made this out of the way. Draw in a MIDI clip with my favorite note, G. Pitch that down a bit. It's going to be a saw wave. So for the first part, actually, let me back up. So instead of using track automation, what I use instead is the mod matrix. And let's say mod wheel is the controller of choice. I'm going to use this to control the filter cutoff, again, for demonstration. And the way that the mod matrix works is that dead center is 0, 100% to the right is actually plus 63, and then 100% to the left is negative 64. For this, I'm going to set 100 or 100% to the right, plus 63, and then this is controlling the cutoff of filter 1. So I'm going to turn down filter cutoff 1, and this is essentially 0. This corresponds to plus 63, even though this says 127. Whatever the range is of this slider is the range of the parameter that you're controlling. So another way to look at it is if I set this to about halfway, and I set this, let's see, all the way. This would only be halfway. So if I sent a MIDI controller of 127, it would only that would start at 0 and it would go to whatever that is, 63, 64. So for this purpose, just so you get the idea, I'm going to keep it really simple. 100% of the mod matrix is plus 63. Turn this all the way down to 0. It's going to control the entire amount. I'm going to set this to a square wave to start off with, set the punch to 0, and then turn up the attack envelope just so we don't get clicks. And then I'm going to call this bass 1, or just bass. Now I'm going to copy this down to the other parts so it copies all of those settings. It's just going to make it faster for a demonstration. And then the second part, I'm going to change the filter type. Third part, I'm going to change the filter type. I won't even use 4. For the second part, I'll choose just a sawtooth. And then for the third part, choose something that we can actually hear a difference. And oops, should have set all of these before. Set the balance over there. So what I'll usually do is I'll set up in a nip patch like this one here, and it will have all of these preset mod routings. So I know that I'm going to use filter 1 cutoff a lot, filter 2, but I'll also use I don't know, oscillator 1, wavetable index. So I'll set all of these up in an initialized patch, and then I'll set them all to 0, and then as I want to use or affect a different parameter, I'll just turn it up or down, depending. So back to automation. So if I go to the clip and double click on it, and go to the envelope tab, select MIDI controller, and then go to modulation. This is where I'm actually going to draw in my clip automation. So what this is going to do is do a ramp up of the filter cutoff. You're not going to actually see the automation like you would using track automation. You just hear it. So that's a slow ramp up. Call this bass. What's cool about this technique is that the automation actually travels with the clip. So if I make this clip shorter and copy it to the second bass part, that automation was copied as well. So that would be a little trickier with track automation, and it's basically a little trickier with any DAW. The first clip, just so you can hear what's going on, what's nice about Ableton is that even though this note is longer than the clip, as soon as I shorten the clip length, it actually will cut off playing that note. But it also shows you the end of the clip here, and it will show you where the automation points are. So for the first clip, I'll just do a sort of dip like that. So it's going to dip down, dip back up. On this one, it's just going to do a ramp up. Then I'll copy this to the third part, and another technique I like. So this is good opportunity to show, like, one of the benefits of using clip automation is that if you unlink using this button, what it's going to do is it's going to play the note length of the clip, but the automation is actually not linked to the clip length. So what you can do is you can draw in, and you can see on the clip itself what's selected, how long this little envelope is, or this little loop is. If I draw in really quick ramps for the automation, it's going to loop back and forth as long as this clip is playing. So right now I have this long sustained note. This automation is going to loop essentially over and over and over again over that clip. And then I'll copy this down to the fourth. I said I wasn't going to use the fourth part, so I'll just get rid of that. So what you can start doing is like building these really dynamic lines that use all 4 parts of the virus. They're all similar in that they, maybe they're using, these are all affecting the cutoff of filter 1. They all have like different waveforms, but I mean, you can really come up with some creative uses, and I use this technique a lot, and the bass lines I write, and a lot of parts I write. So I'll come up with one sound that I like, and then I'll do slight variations on it, and then make 4 different parts and change the automation and do slight variations between all of them. They all sound like they're one sound if you get it just right. It takes some like trial and error, but you can get some really cool stuff. So this is not going to be really cool. This is going to sound like shit because I don't know what any of these sounds are actually doing. But you'll get the idea. So I'll just play this back. Okay, so this third one is definitely not up to task. That's because it's a high pass filter. I'll put it on a band pass, and I'll change this to, let's see what this is. Let's see, something a little more. Yeah, evil. There you go. Okay, so what's also nice about this technique is that since all the automation travels with it, you can duplicate parts almost like if you were working with audio. So you can start arranging a bass line with all of these different elements. You can take the automation from this one and copy it to this one, and so on and so forth. So again, this isn't going to sound like the most amazing bass line you've ever heard, but you'll get the idea of what I'm going for. So and if you don't like that one, just drag it down to this one. And then you can just shorten parts, and you can really just go as crazy as you want with all this stuff. Right. Okay, so you get the idea. Let's say that's my bass line. So those four parts are all going to the snow. Here's where the magic happens. So if I go to live devices, instrument rack, open that up, I've made a folder in here called tutorial. You can do that by right clicking on the parent folder, create folder. If I select the snow and Command G or Control G if you're on a PC, and open up the rack, I'll rename this bass, and then I'll drag this into that folder that I created, and the name that it wants to give me is fine. It's called bass. So if I take this bass group now, and let's say I want to start working on effects and duplicate it, I'm going to select the 4 MIDI tracks and unmute them. And then this one I'm going to call effects, and I'm going to give it a color of red, sure. And then I'll rename all of these. So I'm going to delete all of these, and then what's nice about duplicating tracks is that all of the assignments to the snow are still intact. What's not right is that I still have these 4 bass parts. So let's say instead of bass, I'm going to start working with effects. So I'm going to load up some, I don't know, effecty sounding oscillators. And since it's effects, I'll add some effects. And yeah, some reverb, some delay. Just go crazy. It's not going to sound good, but it still has all of these mod matrix settings. So let's say I'm still going to just worry about filter cutoff 1. I'm going to copy this to all of the other parts. So now I have 4 effect parts. And if I change the name of this and change the color so I know that this is the effects that are playing, I should just hear this effect being played back. So it's sort of a bell. I can do the same technique now where I copy this down to the 4 different parts. Oh, it's the same part, right? I didn't actually change the parameter. So open this back up. And to quickly show a difference in these 4 patches, I'll just select 4 different wavetables. Right? So let's say those are my effects and I'm really happy with them. They're the best effects I've ever written. I'll go back to the snow now and change this to effects. And if I take this instrument rack and drag it into that same folder, now that's saved these 4 effect parts within that instance of the snow. So let's say I like those a lot. But I have a problem with my bass line now. So I want to go back and fix something in the bass. All I have to do is drag in the bass onto that instrument channel, or instrument rack, rather. And if I play this back and mute the effects, right? So now it's just playing the bass. So what I would do at this point, because right now I can't hear the bass group and the effect group together. So what I would do is I would create audio tracks and actually bounce down each channel separately. So I'll call this one bass one audio. I'll set the input to the snow, and then I'll set it to record enable. I'll solo the bass and set this to record. All right, and I'll just clean that up. Then I can mute the MIDI part for this. Let's just change the color so I know that this is actually audio. It's a good color for audio. Black. No, terrible color for audio. Gray. And then turn off the record enable. So now here's the MIDI part, here's the audio part. Mute the MIDI part. Now audio is going to play. Now I'll switch back to the effects parts. I'll mute everything in the bass group, so only the bass one audio is playing. Come back to the effects, load in the effect setting into the snow. So if I open up the snow, it's going to have my 4 effects here. So if I play this back, it's going to play back this one audio part from the bass, and then it's going to play the MIDI from these 4 effect parts. Cool. So that's essentially the entire workflow. I spent a long time like doing this the wrong way, and just, you know, having to go back to parts that were bounced down and not being able to recreate those parts. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves is I want to be able to go back and work on a bass part without having to try to go through a million presets and try to figure out how I came up with that one sound. So if you're even better about labeling things, it's going to make it that much easier. But essentially, I have a folder that has all of my tracks, and then within, so let's say this is actually called tracks, and I have another folder called Wicked. I can have these presets within that folder, and then if I work on another track, I'll just have dope. And let's say, maybe you can't copy and paste that way. Anyway, I can always go back and I can find the exact presets that I was working on, separate parts. So let's say I don't like this one bass sound. I want to go back though and work on that. I still have the MIDI exactly as it is. All of the automation is tied to these clips, so nothing's changed on that. There's no way that I'm going to overwrite it using track automation or nothing like that. Everything's contained in this clip. Everything's contained in this preset. So, like I said, go back into bass. Here's the bass part. I can, change it to whatever I want. And this might seem like like this isn't a novel approach because most VSTs allow you to just do that constantly. But the Viruses is definitely a separate beast, and it has its quirks. And any way I can find to speed up like the workflow or make things less painful is better. So I hope this helps somebody out there. Hope it saves you a lot of headache, heartache, and everything else. And that's it. I'll hopefully make some more tutorial videos on other little tips and yeah, love to hear what people think of this as well. And again, apologies if somebody else has already come up with this and done a tutorial. I haven't seen anything. I wish I had, months and months and months ago. So that's it. Bye.